Welcome. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It would really help the channel to spread around and to help other people to find the videos.
How many of you are aware that we interact with contracts daily without even knowing it? Yep. If you have a cell phone, you signed a contract. If you have cable TV, you signed a contract. Shoot. If you have a bank account, you signed a contract. Contracts are a part of our daily lives. Welcome to Urban Ave Crypto. I'm Thomas Bain. In today's video, we will be breaking down the myths behind smart contracts. But before we get to smart contracts, we need to understand what are contracts, what are contracts typically used for, what are the different types of contracts, and does all contracts involve money? The reason for this video is simple. A lot of folks invested in these digital asset blockchain companies do not understand smart contracts and how important they will be, and understanding that smart contracts will be moving money. So, blockchain companies that will issue smart contracts are not just some blockchain companies that doesn't have any real value. That view and opinion about them is so false, it is laughable in my opinion. Let's take a look at the definition of what a contract is and how many contracts involve the use of money.
What is a contract? A contract is a legally binding agreement between two or more parties that outlines specific terms and obligations, creating enforceable rights and duties. Here's a more detailed explanation. Definition. A contract is a formal agreement, often written, that outlines the terms of an exchange or undertaking between parties. Key elements. For a contract to be legally enforceable, it typically requires offer, a proposal made by one party to another. Acceptance, the other party's agreement to the terms of the offer. Consideration, something of value exchanged between the parties, such as money, goods, or services. Capacity, the parties must have the legal ability to enter into a contract, e.g., be of legal age and sound mind. Legality, the purpose of the contract must be legal and not against public policy. While it's difficult to pinpoint an exact percentage for contracts solely focused on money, many contracts involve monetary transactions, and the vast majority of contracts implicitly or explicitly deal with money, whether it's payment for services, goods, or debts. Here's why. Reasoning. Contracts are agreements. At their core, contracts are agreements between parties, and these agreements often involve a quid pro quo, meaning a transaction where one party provides something in exchange for something else, which frequently includes money. Financial context. Even contracts that seem to deal with non-financial matters, like employment contracts, often involve compensation or financial aspects like salaries, bonuses, or benefits, which are all monetary. Variety in contracts. Contracts can be as simple as an agreement to pay for a service, or more complex, involving installment plans or long-term payments. Legal basis. For a contract to be enforceable in court, it needs to meet specific legal requirements, including a consideration, something of value exchanged, which can frequently mean money. Types of contracts with monetary value. Sales contracts. These contracts explicitly outline the terms of a sale, including the price, payment schedule, and delivery terms. Service contracts. These contracts involve one party performing services for another, with the fee to be paid as consideration. Debt contracts. These contracts establish obligations to repay a loan or other debt, with interest payments and principal repayments. Insurance contracts. These contracts outline the conditions and payments involved in the exchange of coverage and claims payments. Conclusion. Most contracts have some financial aspect, from explicit money exchanges to implied financial arrangements. The core reason for this is that the legal basis for a contract often includes a consideration, which in many cases is a monetary payment or equivalent value.
So, as you just heard, right, majority of contracts involve some type of monetary exchange, right? And For the simple fact that you have a lot of YouTubers coming out talking about smart contracts and making it seem like smart contracts are not valuable, smart contracts don't have anything to do with money, is ridiculous. Smart contracts are just going to be replacing the way how traditional contracts are being done today. That's really all it is, right? It's going to be the same, if I could say, tool, just functioning differently. It's going to be digital, so it's going to allow for business to be done in a more faster pace, a more faster time, right? That's all that's going to be done. It's not going to be anything that I could say how can I say? It's not going to be something where smart contracts are worth nothing. So most blockchains that involve smart contracts are going to be very valuable, okay? I mean, super valuable. There is so many different contracts that deals with money in some capacity. Smart contract blockchains, sky's the limit for them, okay? And when it comes to the whole smart contract conversation, one of the YouTubers that, he really irked my nerves is Zach Rector. He made mention about XRP not needing Flare and a couple of other blockchains. I can't remember the other blockchains at the moment, but I did do a video talking about that if you want to go check it out, where he was talking about XRP not needing, these other blockchains for their smart contracts. He was basically saying that those blockchains like Flare network is going to be useless, which it's not true. They're going to be very valuable because there's going to be different types of smart contracts. Not all smart contracts are going to be equal. Not all smart contracts are going to be the same. There's going to be different smart contracts for different industries, for different use cases, right? That's because that's what not smart contracts, that's what contracts are today. There's many different contracts for many different things. So the fact that he was able to even come out and talk like that, it was insane to me and it was mind numbing, right? But that's up to you guys to go and listen to people like them. I would suggest when you hear things like that, you really think about what they're saying. And once you hear that, you should already be able to tell that that person is probably someone that you shouldn't be listening to because they're leading you down the wrong path. And there's a lot of them who has big channels that they talk, and the way they talk is like, man, I don't like it. And I don't like it for the people because I'm all about the people getting money. I'm all about the people becoming wealthy from this. I'm all about the people getting ahead. I'm not talking about it for me. I'm about everyone getting money from this because it's enough money to go around for everyone. I don't need to be greedy. Anyway, let's take a look at what are the different types of contracts. Let's take a listen.
Contracts can be classified in several ways, including by their performance, unilateral versus bilateral, formation, express versus implied, and nature, fixed price versus cost plus. Here's a breakdown of common contract types. By performance. Unilateral contract. One party makes a promise in exchange for an action by the other party, with no reciprocal promise. Example, a reward offered for finding a lost pet. Bilateral contract. Both parties make promises to each other, creating reciprocal obligations. Example, a sales contract where the buyer promises to pay and the seller promises to deliver. By formation. Express contract. Terms are explicitly stated, either orally or in writing. Example, a written lease agreement. Implied contract. Terms are not explicitly stated but are inferred from the conduct or circumstances of the parties. By formation. Express contract. Terms are explicitly stated, either orally or in writing. Example, a written lease agreement. Implied contract. Terms are not explicitly stated but are inferred from the conduct or circumstances of the parties. Example, hiring a plumber to fix a leak, without a written agreement. Implied in fact arises from the conduct of the parties, indicating an agreement. Implied in law, created by law to prevent unjust enrichment, even if there's no actual agreement. By nature/purpose. Sales contract, an agreement for the sale of goods. Lease agreement, a contract for the rental of property. Employment contract, an agreement between an employer and employee. Service agreement, a contract for the provision of services. Non-disclosure agreement, NDA, a contract to keep certain information confidential. Non-compete agreement, a contract restricting an employee from working for a competitor. Partnership agreement, an agreement outlining the terms of a business partnership. By nature/purpose. Sales contract, an agreement for the sale of goods. Lease agreement, a contract for the rental of property. Employment contract, an agreement between an employer and employee. Service agreement, a contract for the provision of services. Non-disclosure agreement, NDA, a contract to keep certain information confidential. Non-compete agreement, a contract restricting an employee from working for a competitor. Partnership agreement, an agreement outlining the terms of a business partnership. Licensing agreement, a contract granting permission to use intellectual property. Construction contract, an agreement for building or construction work. Purchase agreement, an agreement to purchase property or goods. Cost plus contract, the contractor is reimbursed for all allowable costs, plus a fee. Cost plus fixed fee, the contractor receives a fixed fee in addition to cost reimbursement. Cost plus incentive fee, the contractor receives a fee based on cost reimbursement and incentives for meeting specific performance goals. Cost plus award fee, the contractor receives a fee based on cost reimbursement and an award fee for exceeding performance expectations. Fixed price contract, the price is predetermined and fixed, regardless of actual costs. Increase. Firm fixed price, the price is fixed and cannot be changed, even if costs. Fixed price incentive contracts, the price is fixed, but the contractor can earn incentives for meeting certain performance goals. Time and materials contract, the client pays for the actual time and materials used, plus a profit margin. Unit pricing contract, the price is based on the cost of a unit of work or item. Adhesion contract, a standardized contract presented on a take-it-or-leave-it basis, with little opportunity for negotiation. Unconscionable contract, a contract that is so unfair and one-sided that it is deemed unenforceable.
Okay, so as you just heard, there's many different types of contracts that exist today. And all these different smart contracts, I keep calling them smart contracts, I'm sorry. All these different contracts are going to be moving over to the blockchain. Now, which blockchains are going to handle which types of contracts? I don't know. That's still to be decided. However, all of these types of contracts are going to be coming over to the blockchain and becoming smart contracts. The fact that a lot of YouTubers do not point this out is really an indication that they do not understand the technology and understand exactly what's going on, right? Because there's many different contracts, and all those contracts are going to be converted into smart contracts. But no one talks about it, which is ridiculous, right? But they can tell you what they think is going to make money and what they think is not going to make money. And that's because they're not really doing any real research. Again, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. However, I like to make things make sense. And that's what I aim to do, and that's what I try to do to the best of my ability. And I hope so far, with you guys listening to this, you guys are getting a better understanding of what smart contracts are going to evolve into and how they're going to be used. Because we're going to go from traditional contracts to smart contracts that's on the blockchain. And I hope that you guys are able to see what I'm trying to give you, the information I'm trying to give you, right? I hope you can see it and understand it. Because with understanding how these things are going to be used, it is going to be much better for you in terms of you being able to choose what to invest in and what to not invest in, right? So getting a better understanding of how these blockchains are going to be used and what they're going to be doing is going to help you be able to make better decisions when it comes to making investments, right? That's what it's going to do. So right now, we're going to now take a look at smart contracts. All right, let's take a listen.
What is a smart contract? Smart contracts are self-executing digital agreements on a blockchain network that automatically execute when predetermined conditions are met, offering transparency, security, and efficiency.
So that reading was from Google. We're now going to take a look at what IBM considers to be a smart contract. Some things you're going to hear is the same as what was just read from Google. All right, so let's just take a listen as to what IBM thinks a smart contract is.
What are smart contracts? Smart contracts are digital contracts stored on a blockchain that are automatically executed when predetermined terms and conditions are met. Smart contracts are typically used to automate the execution of an agreement so that all participants can be immediately certain of the outcome, without any intermediaries' involvement or time loss. They can also automate a workflow, triggering the next action when predetermined conditions are met. How smart contracts work? Smart contracts work by following simple if, when, then statements that are written into code on a blockchain. A network of computers executes the actions when predetermined conditions are met and verified. These actions might include releasing funds to the appropriate parties, registering a vehicle, sending notifications, or issuing a ticket. The blockchain is then updated when the transaction is completed. That means the transaction cannot be changed, and only parties who have been granted permission can see the results. Within a smart contract, there can be as many stipulations as needed to satisfy the participants that the task will be completed satisfactorily. To establish the terms, participants must determine how transactions and their data are represented on the blockchain, agree on the if, when, then rules that govern those transactions, explore all possible exceptions and define a framework for resolving disputes. Then, the smart contract can be programmed by a developer, although increasingly, organizations that use blockchain for business provide templates, web interfaces, and other online tools to simplify structuring smart contracts. Benefits of smart contracts: speed, efficiency, and accuracy. Once a condition is met, the contract is executed immediately. Because smart contracts are digital and automated, there's no paperwork to process and no time spent reconciling errors that often result from manually completing documents. Trust and transparency. Because there's no third party involved, and because encrypted records of transactions are shared across participants, there's no need to question whether information has been altered for personal benefit. Benefits of smart contracts: speed, efficiency, and accuracy. Once a condition is met, the contract is executed immediately. Because smart contracts are digital and automated, there's no paperwork to process and no time spent reconciling errors that often result from manually completing documents. Trust and transparency. Because there's no third party involved, and because encrypted records of transactions are shared across participants, there's no need to question whether information has been altered for personal benefit. Security. Blockchain transaction records are encrypted, which makes them hard to hack. Moreover, because each record is connected to the previous and subsequent records on a distributed ledger, hackers have to alter the entire chain to change a single record. Savings. Smart contracts remove the need for intermediaries to handle transactions and, by extension, their associated time delays and fees. Applications of smart contracts. Explore how businesses benefit from smart contracts in active blockchain solutions. Safeguarding the efficacy of medications. Sunoco and IBM are working to reduce issues in the transport of life-saving medications by increasing supply chain transparency. Powered by IBM Blockchain Transparent Supply, Pharma Portal is a blockchain-based platform that tracks temperature-controlled pharmaceuticals through the supply chain to provide trusted, reliable, and accurate data across multiple parties. Increasing trust in retailer-supplier relationships. The Home Depot uses smart contracts on blockchain to quickly resolve disputes with vendors. Through real-time communication and increased visibility into the supply chain, they are building stronger relationships with suppliers, resulting in more time for critical work and innovation, making international trade faster and more efficient. By joining We.Trade, the trade finance network convened by IBM Blockchain, businesses are creating an ecosystem of trust for global trade. As a blockchain-based platform, We.Trade uses standardized rules and simplified trading options to reduce friction and risk while easing the trading process and expanding trade opportunities for participating companies and banks.
As you can hear, there's a lot of benefits to using smart contracts. Things are going to be able to be tracked in real time, disputed in real time. It's going to help business in general to just become more efficient, right? So I'm not saying that there's, maybe some negatives to it. It could be. Right now, I just see the positives, right? I can't see the negatives to it. And if you do see any negatives in it, it's probably more so in terms of you wanting to cheat the system. What the blockchain is going to do is it's going to make it where cheating the system is going to be hard, right? You're not going to be able to do that. So I can't, because I'm not a person that's really so much studying to cheat the system, those things, I don't think about those things. I just look at all the benefits to it. And some of the blockchains that will be utilizing smart contracts is going to be Flare, Cardano, XDC, VeChain, just to name a few, right? Now, VeChain, they're going to be handling smart contracts in terms of supply, right? Supply for different stores like Walmart, McDonald's, and things like that. And if you don't know VeChain, VeChain was actually created by the guy that was the head of Louis Vuitton in China. He's the one that created VeChain. Cardano, they're going to offer smart contracts. I'm not too sure what sector they're going to be offering the smart contracts. Flare, also, I'm not too certain which sector they're going to be offering smart contracts. XDC, they're going to be handling smart contracts when it comes to the financial system, the derivatives market and the bond market. They're going to be handling smart contracts there. But with them handling these smart contracts, people think that these blockchains are not going to be worth anything when they're going to be worth a ton of money, because everything in business has to deal with contracts. And as you've seen from the reading of smart contracts, you can take the information that I gave you about traditional contracts and you can apply it to the smart contracts. And that's really all it's going to be. It's going to be those same traditional contracts, just done on the blockchain in a new way. That's all it is, right? It's that simple. And that's what I mean when I say that these things are simple to understand. A lot of people want to make it complicated, and it's not complicated. It is very easy to understand. And I would say personally, me, if I were going to invest my money, I would pick the smart contracts. I would pick smart contract blockchains. Your Cardano, your VeChain, even Algorand is going to be doing smart contracts. I would pick those blockchains, right? Smart contract blockchains, and I would invest my money in those. Those are going to be good investments, long-term investments, and those investments might be investments that not too much people are going to really, how can I say? I don't think the government is going to study people that invested in those blockchains so much. I really don't think. The government is really they're focused on people that are investing in XLM, XRP. That's who they're focused on because they want those type of people out. But if you're investing in Cardano, Algorand, VeChain, Flare, XDC, they're not studying you really because it's smart contracts. And they already know that most people don't really understand those technologies and what they are. But anyway, I hope that you learned something. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. This is Thomas Bain. I'm out of here.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you tired of worrying about your precious crypto floating around in cyberspace, unprotected? Well, worry no more. Introducing the Biometric Hardware Wallet, a safe, snazzy, and oh-so-secure way to store your digital treasure. Remember, folks, not your keys, not your crypto. This little beauty puts you back in control. It's sleek, it's secure, and it uses your unique fingerprint. So even if someone steals it, they won't get far without you. Click my affiliate link below to grab yours today, and let's keep your crypto as safe as your grandma's cookie jar. Don't miss out.